So good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all the people who are joining us. A lot of us in the Gulf, in the UAE and the Gulf region in general, and we're very grateful to Microsoft and Pierre, who's joining us also, and Kamalesh Lardi, all the way from Switzerland, and we'll introduce them in greater depth as people join in. And Mark Robinson, he's also based in the UAE. So welcome, Mark. Thank you, Kamalesh, for joining us. I'm Tariq Qureshi. I guess you guys know me a little bit. This is the culmination, the climax of this current series of roundtables. It was around cloud. It was we've spoken about cybersecurity, data modernization, data migration, and digital native. All of that stuff has already been covered. Speakers from all over the world and regionally have come together. We've had several Microsoft partners. We'll put together a series and a use case for these roundtables. What has been interesting is that literally hundreds of people have joined us over the last 2 months in this particular process, and the tilt is towards the small, medium businesses, the SMB sector. And there's a special reason for that. Over 80% of the companies in the UAE, for example, 83% to be precise, are small, medium enterprises. A small, medium enterprise is literally from one person, solopreneur, to $300 to $400 million with a minimum of 1,000 people. Now that takes us into the space where companies get listed at that level, and they have the ability to either scale and literally just go exponential, or at an inflection point they can fade out. And I think it's a really important point in most companies' lives when they are at that particular stage. And I'll talk about how the most vulnerable companies are companies that were born in the 20th century and are trying to make that transformation today.
A little bit about myself. My name is Pierre. I work for Microsoft for about 9 years now in the region in the UAE. I'm obviously not from the UAE. I'm Canadian. My background is really, I was born in the cloud. That's all I know. That's my first job. And really that's what I do day in and day out. And I spend a lot of my time with customers in the region talking about digital transformation. And I think the title of my slide is actually pretty fitting, where it says you have to get comfortable to be uncomfortable. And I think that's the premise of how you should think about digital transformation. First thing first is, again, like Tariq said, the world has changed. I think we all know this, but research are showing that companies that decide to invest and embrace technology actually outperform their peers dramatically. They create more jobs, they have a faster increase in terms of annual revenue, and bottom line, they're more profitable. And also, they get to retain talent. If you think about it, this new generation of workers, they don't want to work for legacy companies that have old software or still using pen and paper. So as a company, as a startup or an SMB, it's important that you embrace technology. And there is this perception that you need to flip the business upside down, and digital transformation can be expensive. And actually, with the tools that we have today from Microsoft or other companies, you can actually embrace digital transformation and get your journey started at less than a cup of coffee a day. And one example that I think is very close to my heart and very interesting is Microsoft ourselves, right? So a few years ago, we were seeing our PC shipments go down. Windows install base was shrinking, and customers were asking to consume technology in a complete different way. And we had to innovate ourselves. So we shifted a 45-year-old company upside down, and it didn't happen overnight. It's still happening today after 9 years. But there is a quote that I like from Satya's book that says, our industry, and talking about the technology industry, does not respect tradition. It only respects innovation. And I think that's the mindset that businesses need to have, small or large, in today's era. So we like to keep it simple. We split it into 4 different pillars, and these are business pillars because let's face it, if you are not able to have a business conversation with the stakeholders, then chances are you're not going to be able to understand or convey your point around digital transformation. So the way we go about this is our 4 pillars, which is engage customers in a different way, empower your employees to be more efficient, optimize your operations, and transform your products. There might be more, but this is how Microsoft sees the definition of digital transformation.
So it's a great pleasure to join you here today, especially to talk about a topic that I'm incredibly passionate about. I've been in the space of digital business transformation, I think, the topic itself has existed since the late 90s and early 2000s. So most of my career has been around helping organizations transform with technology. So it's a great pleasure for me to share some insights and some of the experiences in this space. First, let me give you a quick introduction to myself. I'm the founder of Ladi and Partner Consulting. As Tariq mentioned, I work in Zurich, Switzerland. This is our home base. And I'm originally Malaysian, but I've been in Europe since, I would say, 2003, so quite a while now. And our clients are located all over the world. And we have had the great pleasure of working with some incredible clients to basically identify areas where they can optimize their business with technology. So I've been in this space for over 22 years now, specifically looking at strategic development, business optimization, and technology implementation. So I bridged the gap between the business and the technology, basically. I'm also a published author, and I have a new book coming out later this year called The Human Side of Digital Business Transformation, published by Wiley. And the book is really going to talk about the most important element of digital transformation, which are the people. And not just referring to people within your organization or your customers, but an entire ecosystem of people that make or break transformation success. And that includes partners, collaborators, service providers, technology developers, as well as business owners and stakeholders. I think one of the key things that we can all agree on is that technology has been rapidly developing over the years. And this has triggered a fundamental change in the global business landscape. The traditional rules and assumptions of business, rules and assumptions that have been in practice for decades, are becoming less and less valid for business success. So things like how you go ahead and identify and engage with your customer base, how you develop and market products and services, as well as how you manage your organization, its operations, and its people. All of these elements are fundamentally changing, and the traditional way of doing business is becoming less valid. Now, one of the key elements that technology has triggered, a very, very important element, is the shift in human behavior. People have become now a lot more accustomed to leveraging technologies in their daily lives. Pretty much in every aspect of our lives, there is some kind of technology or some kind of algorithm that plays a role in the way we do things. And so this shift is happening from a product-centered focus or product-centered environment into an experience-centered environment where people are looking for more engaging interactions with every organization that they have a touch point with.
I'm very fortunate to have been in the region for the last 8 years and exposed to some really interesting clients and type of programs. And thank you, Pierre. The GCC article that you showed there with Mr. Alabar was actually talking about my program and my team and the work that I was doing at EMA. A very interesting time and a very interesting company and program. My background is Microsoft and Accenture. I spent 10 years with the European Operations Center, the EMEA Operations Center for Microsoft, and with Accenture. And you might look at some of the size of programs I've done here and ask, why am I on a SMB type discussion? I wasn't always working on large-scale transformation, and my career has naturally developed from SMB into enterprise and large-scale and very large programs.
So, Mark, you have been doing a lot of transformation work. Can you just share with us the mindset shift challenges and that you may have encountered potentially? And I spoke about the immune system response, where An immune system in an organization, to me, is like doing a kidney replacement. The first thing you have to do is to give them immunosuppressants to soften the antibodies, and then you put the kidney in there, and then you can have half a chance. Because 75% of transformations fail, as we know, not because of technology, but because of this kind of internal immune system response. What is your experience in addressing that? In all of the companies that you have worked in the past?
As a general rule, there's always a desire and a need and an appetite for digital transformation, but I guess an inability to understand how to take that first step. Now, Kamal has talked about the maturity assessment, understanding where we are today, where we need to be, and what's the roadmap and steps towards it. But that first step is often the hardest. How do we actually get started, especially when we're talking about smaller enterprise, where potentially everybody in the company is working on operations or running the business or serving customers. Now, if you don't have that capacity to actually start a program, it often never gets started. There's an inability to take that first step because no capacity. What's important when I'm talking to clients about this type of inertia is a digital transformation program is not a program. It's a way of working. It's a culture. It's a mind shift change. And it doesn't have to be grand and large and multi-million-dollar. It's important to start small, learn what's working with a very small digital transformation program or digital initiative, learn what's working, and then start to scale with that. That also gives exposure to your own staff and teams on how to be a project participant. Often, a lot of the companies I work with, people have never worked on a project. They've been in their career 10, 15 years, and they're very good subject matter experts, but they've never actually worked on a program. So coming in and kicking off a program tomorrow and expecting it to work, no. You need to make sure that there's an understanding on how the organization is going to support and adopt it.
Now, I've got our friend Irfan just joining us. He's a little bit challenged on time. Irfan, if you can switch your camera on, and please introduce us. He's from Sprinkler, and a quick review of your company and how it fits into this conversation, and then I'll come back to you, Mark, with your permission, please.
Sure.
So that I'd love to share, with this, esteemed group of individuals about Sprinkler. And Sprinkler is the company I work for. I've been here about 6 years. We founded the company in 2009 on the premise, and as I was listening to the conversations, really about digital transformation and the ability to help brands deliver great customer experiences. And today, we live in a world where there is so much data, and all of this data is unstructured. And so Sprinkler can create insights from this data to support marketing, content development, product insights, crisis mitigation. We support brands to create content, update their product, and ultimately engage with their customers on modern channels, right? When we talk about modern channels, it's all the social media channels, all the digital channels, voice as well. And ultimately, we unify marketing, advertising, research, customer care, all on a single unified platform.
Thanks, Irfan. And I'd like to engage literally our other subject matter experts. So you spoke about customer experience. Kamalesh had a beautiful slide on customer experience. Mark, I dare say customer experience was your number one objective out there, and same with you, Pierre. A quick comment, firstly from you, Mark, and then Kamalesh, and then we'll go to Pierre, and we do the right, is how do we put customer at the center of our experience, rather than most organizations are structured around their P&Ls rather than their customers?
If you're, in my view, if you're serving the customer, you start at the customer and work back. And often that stops at the organization. And that's not full service design, where you're looking at what outcomes you need for your customers, what experience are you delivering to customers, and how best do you serve it. Often to serve the customer in the right way with the best CX, you may have to change your internal teams, internal processes, Your supply chain may need to change. Your fulfillment may need to change. That's full service design, where you look at the outcome you're delivering to the customer, and you don't stop at the organization. You go back deep into the organization to design an organization that serves that outcome. Often that mindset isn't apparent with an organization. They stop CX at the organization and they miss EX. How do we design an employee experience that serves the customer, not just departments and functions?
In my experience, most of the time when I do speak to leadership teams and CEOs, the customer centricity is something that's always appearing in their strategic definitions. There's always an element around customer centricity, value definitions for the company around being customer centric. But if you speak to leadership teams, how many of them actually have this direct connection to the customers? How many of them have this direct link to understanding how the customers are functioning, have even interactions with customers? I think that's an important element that is missing in many organizations. The teams that are devising the strategy for an organization are too far away from the people that they're delivering value for. So this connection could be one area, and this could be created. For example, some of the things that we have done with organizations in the past is allow the leadership teams to be part of user acceptance testing or product design and development, or even engage directly with customers at front lines. So a lot of these elements give them then insights around how the customers behave, what their thinking is, and how they really feel about the organization and products.
First of all, so I cover the retail industry in the region, so I'm actually quite encouraged by the shift in mentality from the retail sector to be more customer centric. And I think it's because of Amazon and the likes of, these big companies that are, I've written on the subject, have a clear strategy on the subject, and I'm seeing this definite shift from a mentality perspective. And what we like to consult on is making sure that you can't change what you can't measure. And how to measure customer feedback is making sure that you have the right channels to listen to them. And it starts with listening. And there's this trend in this retail industry to have this omni-channel presence where you can listen to your customers in different areas of the business, where you might not know that your customers were actually talking to you. So it's not just in retail stores anymore. It is online. It is on Twitter. It is on social media. And so having this discussion with the CIOs and the CEOs is actually quite interesting nowadays, because they realize the importance of customer, but they just don't know where to get started on how to listen to them better.
A provocative question to all three of you, and then I'll tell you why I'm asking that question. Do you think the customer is always right? Everybody smiles. Do you think the customer is always right? I don't think so. Does the customer know what he wants or needs?
Often that's a loaded question there you're asking. The customer is always right has been the mantra since day one. The customer is not always right. Even when you're thinking of products and services, sometimes the customers don't know what they want. It's our job to take voice of the customer, subject matter expertise, data, insights, research, marry them all together to then come up with a product to test the market. It could mean you're creating the market, but the customer may never have asked you for that product at all without you bringing all those inputs together.
My answer would have been yes and no. And this comes in because of the learnings that I've had over the past 6 months of writing my book. I do go quite a bit into the different generations of people and how, the Maslow's hierarchy and all of that has transformed over the last couple of years. And I do agree, yes, the customer is not always right when it comes to products and services and capabilities of technologies and how it could be used. And I think there are organizations that are able to bring in this, outside the box thinking and disruptive approach can definitely take a lead in the market. But no, from the perspective, or, customers are right from the perspective of we are shifting into an environment where people, at the end of the day, they are the users of the technology. And you can come up with the best product with the most advanced technology. If people don't use it, it's still pointless.
Behavioral shifts. Pierre, do you look at that when you are consulting with the CEOs and the people that are coming in and sort of saying, looking at customer behavior and doing those kind of focus groups before you sort of say, well, what you need is Azure and what you need is CRM and what you need is Power BI?
Absolutely. And I think Microsoft is a good example of a company that has shifted and started to listen a little bit more into the behavioral analysis of our customers and go from this fixed mindset to growth mindset, right?
Yeah.
Where we are not dictating anymore the products that you will potentially like. And I think also what we have to our advantage is a lot more data, right? That we can leverage to measure certain things that we are receiving from customers. So absolutely, you need to listen to your customers. You need to understand the behavioral shifts, and you need to measure this impact back to your business to hopefully feed it back to your customer.